Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm back again. My name is Bernard Mbasi, and today we'll be looking at a very wonderful feature. And I'll be talking to you about how to create Microsoft forms and configurations that are very necessary before creating. So, in this video, what I'm going to be covering is how to create Microsoft forms, the license requirements, how to build forms step by step, and the important settings you must configure before you share your form. So, stay with me as we learn together. So, let's go. First thing first, I'm going to be showing you what settings you need to configure in your organization to be able to allow the form to be shared and other important things that needs to be done. Before you even come to a point where you can configure your form from your organization, you need to have gone to your Microsoft 365 Admin Center. Under your settings, you come to organization settings. And when you scroll down under organization settings, under the services, you have Microsoft Forms here. Now under Microsoft Forms, you're going to be able to edit settings for external sharing, for recording of names of people in your organization, for allowing of YouTube and Bing, for phishing protection. So basically, you can also control respondent actions, control what actions forms respondents can do. Can the respondents edit? Can they not edit? And so on and so forth. So why this is important is because if these things are not ticked, or if for any reason some features here are disabled, you realize that your form cannot carry out some things. You may be wondering why I'm doing my video. You are seeing me carry out some things and you went to your form and it was not possible. So you need to come to your admin center if you're using the organizational forms, the forms from your license, from your organization. Make sure that these boxes are ticked before you go into creating your forms. Now that that has been showed, next we are going to go into what is a Microsoft form. Now, first and foremost, Microsoft form can just be known, just understand that it's a cloud-based app that is in Microsoft 365 that allows individuals, organizations to be able to create interactive forms. You can also create quizzes, you can also create polls. It automatically collects responses. The responses are collected automatically. You can visualize your data and it integrates it with Excel. You can work with Teams, you can work with SharePoint and Power Automate. So basically, if you see from this my form homepage that I'm here, you can create a new form, you can create a new quiz, you can quick import. You can actually use a template that has already been created for either a workflow solution, a registration, a research, or a quiz to be able to work with what you need to do. Now, the former URL for accessing form was form.microsoft.com, but there's been a new URL from what you can see on my screen where we have forms.cloud.microsoft. The same app is better security. So that's just what you also need to note. And another thing you need to understand is that there are license requirements for you to be able to use forms in your organization. If you are a business or you are using a business or enterprise license, you need to have the M365 Business Basic, Business Standard, or Business Premium, the Office 365 E1, E3, E5, Microsoft 365 E3, E5. Then for education, you need to use the Office 365 A1, 365 A3, and A5. Then for personal use, you can actually still create a form by using your Outlook account or your Microsoft account personally. Just that it's going to be basic form. There are some features that you will not get to see when you're creating your form. When I start creating, I'll show you a bit of some of the things that you can see if you're using your organizational form, organizational license to create form, or when you're using your personal account. One of the things that you should just note before I get to show you is that you can actually carry out the file upload when you're using your license form, your M365 license form. But when you're trying to create a personal form from a Microsoft account or your Outlook, you will not see the option for file upload. Now, why that has been explained and sorted out. Another thing you should also understand is what a user actually needs to create form. You need a valid Microsoft 365 license, as I talked about earlier. You also need to have a supported account type. You need to have either a school account, a work account, or a personal Microsoft account. And you need to have the permissions from the Microsoft 365 Admin Center that can allow you to create it. Remember, I had gone to the admin center and showed you how those permissions can be edited. When you come to the admin center, you go to organizational settings, go to Microsoft Forms, and then manage your external sharing and record the names of the people in your organization who can fill out forms. That setting is also very important. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about is how we can access Microsoft Forms. I talked about it earlier in a video how that the former URL for accessing forms was forms.microsoft forms.microsoft.com. Take it to where you can access it. But there's a new URL you can see from my screen. The new URL is forms.cloud.microsoft. Same thing. It's just that it's a new URL. So you can use that to access your forms. You can also open the Microsoft 365. If I come here under my where I've signed in and I click on apps here, I can get to see forms. If I do not see forms from here, I can go to more applications. And under more applications, you scroll down to where you can see forms. Under more applications, if you scroll down, you see forms and you can click on it, and that still takes you to where you can access your forms and work with what you need to work with. Very important. Very simple, very straightforward. Either you type the URL or you go to where we can go to your where you signed into your office.com in your organization, then check for where you can access the forms. Now that has been sorted out, the next thing I want to you can also access it from inside your Microsoft Teams. Next thing I want to talk about is how you can create your first form. Now we have this form here. Before I go to talking about how to create the first form, I also need you to understand that if you have a Copilot license embedded in your M365, you can also create a form using Copilot. You can also create a form using AI. So I'm going to show you what it looks like for I have an account that has Copilot, a Copilot license. I'm going to show you how it looks like when you're trying to create a form using the Copilot license. Now, for this particular account, there's no Copilot license attached to it. So if you want to create a form, I'll come in here and I'll click on New Form. When I click on New Form, I'll be required to condition either I can do a quick start or I can use a template. If I click on the template now, the template will be appeared. I can edit it to my preference and work with it. If I do not want it, I can untick it. Then I can work with I do not want it, I can take it out. Then work with a brand new form entirely based on my preference. So do not forget that. I do not want this. I do not want this. Leave. Thank you. So I'll just click on new form. You can select a template to work with, or you can just create your form from scratch. Now, while you're creating your form from scratch, you also need to understand the different options you have. Now, before I go to showing you the different options I have, let me explain something to you. Now, I'm trying to create this form from my organization's license, my M365 license, and I have the choice, the text, the rating, the date, the ranking, the Likert, the upload file, the net promoter score, and the section. But if I come to this other account here, this account is like my personal, another Microsoft account that I have, and it does not actually, it's not from, it's just a normal account that I have. If I click on Quick Start here, you realize that one of the abilities, um one of the things I can use to create my form is actually missing, and that is the upload file. So the upload file is actually not available when you're just using your personal Microsoft account or Outlook account to create the form. It's more like it comes with the M365, comes with when you're using the M365 license to create it. And another thing is that this is more like when you're creating a basic form, just a basic form for just basic use. When you want to create an organization's form, you can see the upload file option here. That's showing you every other option is there except the upload file. But for this, the upload file is there. So take note of that. I need to explain that to you. Now, first, you can decide to add a title to your form. Under the title here, I can say, okay, now if the sensitivity level you want to apply, you can apply it here. I can come, you can decide to edit the title of your form. Scroll down, titled form. If I come to here and I say, okay, assessment form, make it capital letter A. I just call it, just call it form one. And note also that the saving happens automatically. You don't need to go and be saving manually. I can describe my form. You can just say to collect responses. Simple. Then after that, you can now go ahead to insert your form. The moment I'm doing that, the form one is editing itself here and giving us what we need. Now, under the question, very important. As I said earlier, if you have the Copilot license, let me show you an account that has the Copilot license and what it looks like when you're trying to create a form. If I come to this other account that is down here, this is an account with the Copilot license. And I come to where we have forms and I want to create a new form. If I click on new form, to take me to the place where I can create my new form. And where it's taking me to is such that it gives me the opportunity to draft with Copilot. I can decide to describe the form I want to create, and immediately it will give me that form, and I can edit it, go through it, and make sure that it is to my preference before sending it out for responses. So note that if I do not want to use this, I can just close this here, and I'll still be able to create the normal way by quick starting here and choosing what I want. Is it text? Is it choice? Is it rating? And so on and so forth. Now that that has been out of the way, the next thing I want to talk to you about is how that you need to, after adding the title and description, I've showed you how that is done. You can add questions. You can say the first question here, you can edit it to say, what is your name? Question mark. Then you can decide that whether the question you're asking is a required question. What that simply means is that the question must be filled. If it's not required, you can untick it, it becomes optional. The person can decide to answer it or not answer it. But most often, this is always a required question because you need to know the name of the person filling the form, especially if you are giving it to people outside the organization. But if you're working with people within your organization, you can always make it to be anybody that fills it, you get to see. I'll show you that when we are trying to collect response. You can also decide to customize your theme. You can go to where we have the style and select a theme based on your preference. You can select this as your theme, and then you can select the layout based on your preference and just play around with it. You can also decide to say, okay, that you want to preview your form after your form has been created. You can click on preview. That gives you the option to preview the form on your computer or selecting the mobile to see what it will look like when you're filling the form in a mobile device. So these are very, very, very important features that you can get to configure and see how it works when you are actually trying to configure one. Now, the next thing I'm going to be talking about is the data picture upload. Now, there's something that I need you to understand. Very important. Why I need you to understand is because I'm going to be doing another video to show you how a walkthrough can a walkover, or should I say a way to actually navigate through this restriction per se. Now, the moment you try to add a question and then the question you select is file upload or upload file for any reason. But before I do this, let me just take this out and show you something. I can delete a question. If I click on um collect responses and then I come to no, not collect responses, if I click on where we have settings, yes, who can fill this form? You realize that I can decide to say, okay, anyone can fill this form. So this is an anonymous response. It doesn't require signing. You can decide that only people in Jesote can fill it, only specific people. What this specific people simply means is that I can decide to say, okay, these are the people that I want. And then I can make sure that it is one response per person. I can also choose maybe a group that I want to be able to be filled the form. Then the options, I can accept responses. I can set the start date and the end date. I can set the time duration for which the form should be active. After that duration, the form is off. I can configure the questions to be shuffled in that question one can be question five for you, question five can be question one, and then I can disable question number. I can show progress bar based on my preference. You can just go through these settings, and then another thing is the response receipt. You can allow receipt of responses. You can get email notification for each response. I can configure it that after the response has come, I should receive an email response. So those are different things you can also get to do when you're configuring your form. Now, if you observe here, from here, I added one question and I had the ability to actually configure that anyone can respond. But if for any reason I come here, I close this and I come to my add a question and decide to say, okay, fine, let me go back there first. Let me take it to be only people in my organization. And I come to find, I say, let me add upload file. If you observe from what happened, the moment I ticked anyone can respond, the upload file was disabled. Let me go back there and tick anyone can respond. If I come to add a question now, I cannot include the upload file. So basically, what you need to understand is that the moment you include upload file as a question, you cannot set it to for anyone to respond. And the moment that is done, it becomes more like a restriction. I'll be creating a video where I'll show you exactly how to go a walk around for this, how you can actually still upload your file even when you are making possible for anyone to be able to respond to your file. So if I come down to my settings again and I go to only specific people in my organization and I click on add a file, for instance, and I click on upload file, and then I want to go to settings again, you realize that I cannot tick this. And if I click on this info, it will tell us that file upload is only available when only people in JSON can respond to the selected setting. So this is one thing I just needed to make sure that very important and very, 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 very necessary. But I'll still show you how you can make sure that even when anyone is ticked, anyone can respond. You can still get your file uploads and go to access the uploads and then proceed to do what you need. The next thing I need to talk about is sharing your form. I've showed you how that can be done, where you can come in. And then another thing you need to also understand is how you can collect the responses for your form. Very important. If I click on collect responses, this is the URL for my form. You can actually decide to shorten your URL, copy it, and go to where you can paste it. Now, under here, under send and collect responses, if I click on specific people in my organization and I click on one response per person, I can search for a particular group. I can search for a group and say only people in this particular group. Let me check. Let me say only people in this part. You can add a name, a group, or an email address, or you can add a Teams channel to inform your audience instantly about your latest form. Now, let me see. Let me check out the groups that I have in this my organization. And I have a couple of groups here. If I come down here, come to active teams and groups, and then just want to find out the group I can use, and I click on, let me say, okay, this is a best. If I come back to my form and type the best, that should come out, and then I select that. So basically, what this means is that only people that are inside this group can respond to this form. Even if other members are part of the resort organization, they cannot respond to this form if they are not members of this group. That's another very important thing you to note. And then you can also decide to configure invitation to them. You can send it to their Outlook and to their teams. You can also try to configure a barcode where after users have signed the barcode, they can be able to fill the form. You can also decide to configure the embedding. So it's very, very important that you understand this. For those of us that have attended meetings and conferences or submitted sweepstakes forms, this is exactly how most of those forms are being configured. They design it from here and then they pull it out for people to be able to submit it for vouchers and the rest. Very, very important. Now, after you've collected response, you can actually view your responses. Another thing you should also note before I proceed is that if you're configuring a quiz, for instance, there are peculiarities. When you are configuring a quiz, it gives you the ability to actually like configure your points for each of the question, select whether it is math that you're trying to allow people to solve, and so on and so forth. There are peculiarities. You can play around with it and get to see what I'm talking about. Now, if I want to view the responses for this, the moment there's a response for anything, the response will be recorded here. The average time for the response, the duration of the response will be recorded here as well. And you can get to see that and keep track and get to understand exactly what. And you can also export your response to an Excel file. Let me go to where I have let me go to where I have a list. Okay, let me check this. I think I have this. This is a template file that I use. And you now got it. I go to view responses and you now go to where you can export it. You can actually export it from here and get to see what it looks like. If I click on this, view your response in an Excel where you can continue. Or you can go to where we have this. You can download a copy and open it from Excel and get to I just needed to make sure, and if you see here, we have just two responses. We have the average time for the responses. These are those that responded. These are their names. This is the average time it took for them to respond. This is the duration for 320 days. These are their email addresses, their locations, and so on and so forth. So that's basically what I intended to show us today, how you can use form and how the licenses required to you to create a form, the permissions, and how you can build and share your forms in organizations for better collection of data and so on and so forth. So thank you so much for being a part of my YouTube video, and I'll see you in my next video. Thank you and have a great day ahead. Bye bye.